Guys, Battlefield 1 Early Access is upon us, and if you've purchased any version of the game besides that standard version, you already know that you have access to the full game of Battlefield 1 as of this morning at 12 a.m. Eastern. So, I'm super pumped the game is out. I had a lot of fun with it in the beta, but I'm especially pumped that I was able to get my hands on it this morning, a couple hours before work, so I can make a benchmark video today, the day of the release of the title. So this is the first time doing this, the day a game comes out, releasing a benchmark for my 2014 Razer Blade. So I'm super excited about it. I hope you are too. Anyway, this video, like my other benchmarks, if you want to go check those out, I'm going to put a link in the top right side of this video. I'm going to be looking at 6 different settings of the during the time of this benchmark. So I'm going to be looking at 2 graphical settings in 1080p resolution, low and medium, and I'm also going to be moving to 1200p resolution at all graphical settings, so low, medium, high, and ultra. The reason why I only picked a couple 1080p resolution settings is because I was trying to run the game at 1080p at first, and it would take a while for the screen to adjust to that resolution, and 1280p was the default suggested resolution to play this game on the Razer Blade, so I just wanted to go with that most of my tests. I will say too, before getting into this, the game runs extremely beautifully on any setting. So just even if you choose low settings at the end of this test, I'll tell you why. Just know it's still a very beautiful game and it will be worth it. So moving on to the test. Let's start at 1080p resolution at low graphical settings. I was getting an average about 61 frames per second, min hitting around 50 and max hitting around 70 frames, which is very respectable for sure. But the game runs super hot. I'm not sure if they need to release a driver or something or some type of patch, but the CPU climbed to about 96 degrees Celsius, which I think at 100 the laptop just kills whatever process is causing that heat. And the GPU hit about 90 degrees, which is pretty normal if you're used to my past tests, so that's not a big deal, but 96 for the CPU is really high. Next test. The last 1080p resolution test, I'm looking at medium graphical settings, and there was a bit of a drop in frames per second, but we're still getting about an average of 46, which is okay. High reaching about 50, min going as low as 39, when you're in buildings, big gunfight, etc. Temperatures here, pretty high again. CPU reaching 96, 97 degrees at times, and the GPU sticking at 90 degrees Celsius average we're always seeing, so that's not a big deal, but man, that CPU temperature is so high. But like I said, and previously, 1080p, it was pretty taxing. It was actually more taxing on the computer than I saw at 1200p resolution. Like I said, I'm not sure if it's the engine, the graphics driver needs an update, but we're just going to move to 1200p resolution test now. So at low graphical settings at 1200p, we're seeing a spike, obviously, and a good one with an average frames per second of about 75 that I was receiving from my test. Min only going to about 69 and high reaching about 90 frames. That's freaking awesome. And the game looks awesome. Temperatures though, again, super high. CPU going about 96 degrees again, but the GPU sticking to that normal average. So the game is running well, but that high temperature, it makes me really nervous to sustain that for long periods of time on the hardware. So let's just move on to medium graphical settings. Average frames are looking about 56 frames per second, low reaching about 44, but still getting above 60 at about 65 frames per second for my high. You're still reaching above that 60 here, but the average was just below that, so keep that in mind. Temperatures, again, are the same. It's just less peaks this time. It was more sustained CPU temperatures, but still mid-90s, and the GPU hitting 90 degrees. So yes, there was less peaks and valleys on this, but it's just like sustained heat. So I'm going to reiterate, nervous. Heading towards the deep end, we're looking at high graphical settings, 1200p resolution. I was getting an average about 37 frames per second, which is a pretty large dip. But I was seeing a closer min-max ratio with 36 and 43 frames per second respectively. Temperatures are starting to throttle here. This is the first time we see the CPU maxing at about 89, 90 degrees Celsius, so it is a lot lower than previous tests, but the GPU this time reached a little bit higher at 92 degrees. It's definitely a hardware throttle that we've seen in previous tests with other games, and it is nice that the CPU is lower, but you're getting a huge impact to your average frames per second. And then going to our last test at ultra graphical settings, there's not a whole lot of surprises here. The low is about 30 frames, high is about 40 frames per second. giving an average of low 30s. It was about 33 frames per second, so it was close to that low on average. It did just reach high a couple of times. And I just wouldn't recommend playing the game at ultra graphics settings, obviously. And that's just the sign that this is a brand new video game on 4-year-old hardware and on a laptop, still using a mobile GPU. So, like I said, it's not a huge surprise. Temperature-wise, we saw the same throttles, so the CPU only reaching about 89, 90 degrees again, and the GPU hiking this time to 93 degrees. So it's still about the same as what we saw with high graphical settings. So those were my tests. I would still recommend playing the game at 1200p resolution, at least until maybe a patch or a driver comes out. I might do an update video if that's the case. And then running the game at low settings. So you could get away with medium settings if you want, but you know, I really like having that high frames, and it still looks really pretty at low settings. So it is old hardware. You do have to make some sacrifices, but like I said, it's still very beautiful. I don't think you're going to be disappointed at low settings. But I do really want to stress this point. From the test that I had, this game runs extremely hot. I hope this changes, but at this time, 96 degrees Celsius for your CPU is dangerous, in my opinion. So just think on that before you have like a really long, prolonged gaming session using the laptop playing Battlefield 1. So just keep that in mind. But I hope you found this video helpful, guys. Please hit that like and subscribe button if you did. And as always, I want to thank you for watching this video, and I hope your day is beer and Skittles.